Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is a nice evening tea. It's called after dinner tea, so yes, from Neil's Yard Remedies. It's just a good herbal tea. It's not special. It's not something I particularly look forward to in terms of taste, but it's not bad either. Calming. We like calming. I need calming because I have a lot to talk about today. Um, I'm doing a wrap up of basically the last half almost, or three quarters, or whatever it is, of I guess the last half, I can't do math, of 2022 that I haven't talked about yet. So mainly, I guess, August, September, and December. I don't think I've covered everything here because I had some ebooks that I'm just too lazy to talk about. And yet, I'm going to talk about a lot of things that I haven't mentioned and I haven't read for a number of months. So, and some things I've read quite recently. So, some of it may be a little vague. It'll just be a general opinion or general discussion as quick pace as possible because I don't really want to linger too much on last year. I want to move on. But some of these were worth at least mentioning. So I hope you enjoy this. This is one of the, I got a little bent, I think, in a bag or something. Um, this is the Traveling Tea Shop by Belinda Jones. Excuse me. It was basically about a woman who is a travel agent, which I thought was relatable because many, many, many moons ago I was a travel agent. So, but this is a slightly different situation. In this case, she organizes things and sometimes even becomes a part of the trip with the person traveling. In this case, she organizes a bit of a tour of some of Northeast United States for a British television presenter and writer who is also a cook, a baker, etc. And her daughter's coming and her mother's coming, and they're gonna drive or they're gonna ride in a double-decker bus, going to different cake places, and it's all for book purposes, etc. But um, it's kind of a like a I don't know if this is a very likely scenario, but it's a fun book. It's just I mean there are some slightly deep subjects that are covered here, but it's mostly a pretty lighthearted situation, just the usual issues that people deal with and the crankiness and the family getting along and certain things that people didn't communicate to each other over the years and some of the past coming back to haunt you, that sort of thing. Eh, everybody's favorite kind of trip. I had fun reading it to a point. The only thing was is that they were eating so much cake, and I have a sweet tooth. I love cake, I love cookies, I love all kinds of sweets, but it got me a little bit nauseated after a while because I was like, okay, how much can you possibly eat in one trip? But it was a fun book. It wasn't it was like one of those reads if you just want something kind of cozy and light and not too much to think about, not stupid, but not too much to think about. I think that's a good thing to read. Let's see. This is also not in the exact same vein, but I don't know. Is it a similar genre? I don't know. This is called The Lost Ticket by Freya Sampson. In the UK, I think it's called something like The Girl on the Number 88 Bus. I knew this really well for a while. Is it mentioned on the back with the number? I'm pretty sure it's the 88. Yeah, 88 Bus. I didn't forget. This is about a guy, an elderly man at this point in modern times, who has been for many years riding the number 88 bus. I think from the beginning to end, or thereabouts, because back in the 60s, he met a girl on one of his rides and, you know, kind of had feelings for her and got her information but lost it on his bus ticket, which he lost, obviously. So he keeps thinking maybe she'll repeat this route one day and maybe they'll find each other at some point. And which is kind of sad, but also interesting. And it's not just from his point of view, really. It's actually from a point of view of a woman who has been dating someone for a while, living with him, and then they break up, and now she's moved in with her sister, who lives a bit of a different lifestyle than she does. So it's all that kind of getting your life back together. She has parents that have really crazy expectations of her, and she meets this guy on the 88 bus as well, and as well as other people, and they come into each other's lives and they help each other out. She kind of makes it one of her missions to try to find this woman for him, And it's a nice story. It has ups and downs as most stories do, but it was one of those I thought enjoyable reads. And speaking of things I got from London, this book I didn't get from London, but it inspired me when I went to London to ride the 88 bus. Not the whole thing, but from, I think, near Camden Market, if you know anything about London, down to Piccadilly Circus area. So it was a pretty nice ride, and you get to see a lot of things. I got to, I think, see where Wilkie Collins was born. I think we passed by. I'm not sure, but it was a good scenic direction to take. There are a few buses in London, if you're there ever, that are specifically great. I mean, I guess they're good if you need to get to where you need to go from a certain point A to point B, but I mean for tourists, for really seeing the things. This isn't the top one, but it's a pretty good one. I think the number 24 and the 11 are the other ones. I took the 11 as well on this trip. So, fun book. Okay, not so fun book, but interesting. And this is a book that a lot of people read, and including me. And it was the one, I think it was in October. It was like the one non-Victober book that I read that month. And this is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. I always forget her name. I actually watched sometimes the show iCarly that she used to be in. It was not made from people of my age range, but I guess I was around when it was on TV, and sometimes I watch it. I thought it was cute. I think because when I was younger, not as young as they were, but when I was younger, I had a camcorder, and my friend and I used to make all kinds of videos together, and we would have loved to have had that kind of situation. You know, we didn't have YouTube back then. And so I kind of like the show, and she was the actress I think that I noticed the most. What's English? I noticed the most, and yet I knew nothing about her private life because I wasn't looking into that. I didn't care, you know. Back in those days, and even nowadays, it's unless I get particularly into a particular actor or actress, I usually will watch them and just do a quick IMDb, you know, about how old are they, where were they born, and you know, etc. And that's pretty much it, because I don't put that much thought into it, and you don't always realize some of these people go through a lot of stuff. And it's basically about her mom, who since she was young actually was fighting cancer, and so eventually it did, you know, it did come back, and you know, eventually she died. But in the meantime, she was, you know, pushing her daughter into this career as an actress, which is something a lot of moms do, but she really pushed her and really tried to make her something that she kind of wasn't. And she tried to keep her young, so she encouraged her to diet in ways that led to eating disorders. So this is not just about her relationship with her mom, but it really is a lot about that, and also how her life changed after her mom did die. Mostly for the better, but also how she had to deal with that, and how she had to deal with her eating disorder and her relationships. And it can be kind of intense sometimes. If you have issues reading about people, you know, throwing up, stuff like that, it might be a little hard for you, but I thought it was a pretty good memoir, and I think it was meant to be a little bit shocking. Whew. But yeah, I know a lot of people read that book, so I'm not the only one who was talking about it, so I didn't need to spend hours talking about it either. Okay, let's see. This was one. See, I'm really going all over the place because I'm just not going in order. But this one I think I also read in September. I've been trying to keep my reading up about the Pre-Raphaelite art movement and all the people who are involved with it, and because it's one of my favorite types of paintings to encounter. I don't know, I just really enjoy it, and I didn't get to do any museums when I was in London this time, so I didn't get to see the art there, but I did see some when I was in Chicago, and recently they temporarily moved some paintings to New York that are kind of, some are Pre-Raphaelite and some are inspired by them. So I've had enough, I think, for this year, which is good. And this book I hadn't read yet. I don't remember where I got it from, probably online somewhere, because it doesn't have a book off sticker or something. And I have to look back at some of my hauls maybe. This is by Tim Barringer, Reading the Pre-Raphaelites. What I liked about it is it was a little bit about the life of the Pre-Raphaelite painters, etc. But it was mostly about the actual painting, just analyzing them and what was the inspiration behind it, what was the history behind it, what was the technique behind it. And I like that because I'm not really much of an artist myself or an art historian, but it was made easy enough to understand. And I wish I could find this one painting in here. I don't think this is it. No. Just give me a moment. Okay, I found it. This is a painting by Ford Madox Brown, An English Autumn Afternoon, Hampstead. Scenery in 1853. It's kind of hard to see because it's, got a little shine on it, etc. But I got excited about that because I was reading this in right before autumn, and I'm one of those people who gets really excited once the once we get into autumn, and at least for the first month or so. But and I thought this was beautiful, the autumn colors, but it was a little described as, it's a suburb, it's not very attractive. And it's so weird how, compared to one thing, things change. How what looks beautiful to me now, because I live in a very urban area with we have trees and stuff, but nothing really super vibrant when it comes to flora and fauna. So comparatively, the suburbs back then, the city bits of London, some of it was dark and gross and dirty and dangerous, but some of it was actually quite pretty. So to compare to now, etc. Although Hampstead still looks amazing. Hampstead also is covered a lot in that book, The Lost Ticket. So some of these things are connected. Excuse me for that funny noise. I do think that these kind of books are good because I read a lot, and I'm reading a book also currently, sort of, about the Pre-Raphaelites again, more of their romantic lives, and that's good. It's important, but it's also really good to learn just about a bit of a study, if you're into it, that is. I thought it was worthwhile, and it's not a very big book, but it does pack a lot in it. Look at the green, my favorite color. Okay, so I dropped it. So now here's actually two different books that are similar subjects. One is a nonfiction that I read. Actually, I meant to read a book that was Tudor related for September, Tudor-tember, but I actually finished this book, I think, more at the end of August, but I kind of count it as my Tudor-tember read because it was close enough. And then I saw The Six on Broadway. Six? Is it The Six or Six? On Broadway, which was about the six wives of Henry VIII. It was a fun show, so at least I did something for that month. But this book I've had for a little while. It's one of my $1 book offs, and I thought I gotta read this. And it's called Sisters to the King by Maria Perry, The Tumultuous Lives of Henry VIII's Sisters, Margaret of Scotland, and Mary of France. So I've known a little bit about these sisters, but because I had to, if you learn anything about the Tudors, but this was just slightly more in depth. I didn't know that much about Margaret, although I think I read one historical novel about her, probably by Jean Plaidy. I think it was Jean Plaidy. The Thistle and the Rose sounds like what it was, I think. So I probably did, and yet I didn't remember much. But I didn't, it's always good to kind of remember her relationship also to her brother, and it wasn't the best relationship, to be honest. They didn't absolutely hate each other, but they weren't that into each other, and yet sometimes Margaret would have to get assistance from Henry, and yet sometimes they were kind of at odds, whether it was by accident or not, because of her first husband, who was the king, who actually was defeated in battle with the English and killed, and so that must have been awkward. And then also she remarried after that and had some troubles, and Henry, of course, was all about that. And Henry was also distracted a lot by his own relationships later on. So they get into that, of course, and they get into his younger sister, Mary, who's also interesting because she was considered very pretty. I think he liked her the most of his siblings, and he sent her to marry the King of France, who was much older than her and didn't have any children. So, and she basically asked him, okay, fine, I'll marry him, but can I choose my next husband? In other words, he's an older guy. I'm probably not going to be married to this guy forever. So if my turn comes later on, can I choose? And Henry seems to have given his permission, but before they got back to get his permission again, once King Louis the whatever number died, and it was established that she wasn't pregnant because that was important too. She married Charles Brandon, the Duke of Suffolk, who is to me one of the most interesting people in Tudor times because he survived. He died in his bed, and he was very close to Henry VIII. Like, this is a miracle to me that he did that, especially because he eloped with his sister too. So this already is a good story. So if you want to know about that, I would recommend this. However, they went for a very long time into the whole, Catherine of Aragon and, the struggles with Henry wanting children and then Anne Boleyn getting involved and that whole matter. So of course that's important in the story, but I think it took over a little bit too much. The only reason I could say it could be justified is because it is actually called Sisters to the King, and technically for a little while Catherine of Aragon was Henry's sister-in-law, so which was part of the problem. But so it was good, but I wouldn't recommend this as like your first, second, or third, fourth Tudor nonfiction. It was just okay. So anyway, also I read Catherine of Aragon, The True Queen by Alison Weir. I did a little backwards. I think I started reading from Jane Seymour, who was the third queen, onward. Although I think I skipped Catherine Howard at the time. I just wasn't up to it, and I don't know if I ever will be. But so now I'm going back, and I also have the one about Anne Boleyn out from the library now. I thought it was good because sometimes Alison Weir, when she does these, she throws in some storyline, some big shocking secret that this queen had, that like pregnancy or something that none of us knew about. And I think that's a little, I understand for the drama, but I'm also like, we don't know that happened, and I'm not crazy about that sort of thing. But this one was less about that, I feel, unless I'm missing something, unless I'm not as schooled in Catherine of Aragon's history, and maybe there was something that was mentioned that really didn't happen. But it didn't feel so incredulous, And it just, I mean, it's kind of, I don't want to say a drag, but it did go on for a bit, but that's because Catherine was the longest lived queen, actually, and she was married to Henry the longest, and they did seem to have a good relationship in the beginning, and then things went downhill after a while. But it's a good, if you have it from Catherine's point of view, it's good to have every point of view, sort of. I mean, we don't know her exact point of view, but from what you could gather. And I thought that was good. I don't know if it was my favorite ever book about the Tudors either, fiction, but I thought it was really pretty good. I don't know what to say. It's a good pace. I think in a way I compared to someone like Philippa Gregory, who kind of goes all over the place. I kind of prefer her a little bit. Anyway, I am running out of time, so I'm going to go really quick on the next two books, which is sad because one of them was really, really good. But this is The Mirror Cracked by Agatha Christie. I kind of knew the story, but I forgot about it a lot. But I read it, just because I basically picked it because it was just something I picked. But it was a good story. It did keep you guessing, but I did end up figuring out who did it before. Maybe because I read it before. But it was a good mystery. I'm glad I read it in December for, it's a good month to read Agatha Christie. And last but totally not least, The Last Chronicle of Barset. Very good. I love Anthony Trollope so much, and this really wrapped it up well, putting everything together, and very satisfying, except they brought in a new storyline and some new characters, and that part just brought it down like a half a star for me on Goodreads, because it was just, if it were possible, because it was just not my favorite storyline. I feel like they could have done without. I liked it because it was satisfying, but it wasn't perfect, and yet I am really happy with the way things ended up. And now I want to read more Trollope, more and more Trollope. So that is my, as quick as possible, but it's still about 20 minutes, wrap up of the year. And I hope that you've enjoyed hearing these books. And yes, I went a little off of some of them, but Let me know if any of these books that you've read that you liked as well, or if you had any particular books the past few months that you really, really liked reading. And so if you like talking about these kind of books, and I'll try to slow it down a little bit more in the next few months and get a little more in depth about certain books, etc., hopefully, please subscribe and always feel free to like and comment. Love to talk. Even though I procrastinate on responding sometimes, I will, however, do so. So this is Catherine at Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely tea and book-filled day.